If I had to try and scare myself as quickly as possible, I probably wouldn't go and put on a horror film. I'd probably go to the nearest graveyard. There's something just unnerving about them, especially when you're alone. Well, imagine being a cemetery worker. It's literally their job to be alone in a cemetery at night. Sounds like my absolute nightmare. Will it be yours now though? Let's find out. I'm Danny Burke, and this is the top 10 scary cemetery worker stories. These all come from Reddit, so if you hear me say a name, it's their username, not actually their first name. That might be a bit weird. Alright, let's get into this with our number 10 now, which is Blue Eyes. This one comes from Hot Sheet Hotel. He said that when he was in high school in the late 70s, he and his best friends worked in a cemetery as groundskeepers. It was their job to trim the hedges and keep the grounds tidy. They often had to remove dead flowers or notes from graves. One day, they found something truly shocking: a naked, dead body. It was a young woman around the same age as them. She was actually a student at a neighboring high school. She'd been left there neatly with her arms at her sides on that foggy morning. She had been strangled right there. A killer had also punched her several times in the face before she died. The police identified her quickly, but her clothes were never found and her murder never solved. He and his friends got grilled by the police, but they quickly realized the boys were just as shocked and confused as everyone else. Moving on to number 9 now, we have the fresh corpse. This one comes from Adele Vetica. She said that one night she drove up to her usual spot when she noticed a white car blocking the road. She parked behind it, got out of her car and started walking up the hill to her office. As she made her way up the brick path, she looked ahead to see someone there in the lamplight. They were slouched against the railing with their head facing down. At first she thought it was a homeless person, not an unusual occurrence. As she got closer though, she realized something was seriously wrong. She saw that they weren't actually alive. It was the body of a woman with a noose tied around her neck, and there was blood everywhere. The way she was sitting made it look like she had been placed there. She called the police, who found a suicide note in the car that was blocking the road. It was from a former nurse who had recently lost her daughter. After that night, she decided she couldn't work in a cemetery anymore. Moving on to number 8 now, we have the eggplant. This one is just straight up weird. It comes from Punxsutawney. He said that one day, about 30 minutes before a funeral, someone showed up and was seen standing near a freshly dug grave. He thought nothing of it and thought they had just shown up a bit early. About 10 minutes later, he got a call from her manager. They told him someone had put something inside the grave. Confused, he went to investigate. There, in the grave, he found an eggplant. Inside the eggplant, he found a picture and some strips of paper with strange words written on them. The names of the paper did not include the person being buried, which was almost even weirder. He and his co-workers became convinced it was all voodoo. Next up at number 7 now, we have the sisters. This one comes from Fun Director. He said in their town they had 2 elderly sisters who were inseparable. They did everything together. They never married and lived together their whole lives, taking care of each other all the time. When one of their friends died, they came to the funeral. After the sermon, he ushered everyone over to the casket. Sister 1 waved at him and was sitting there holding Sister 2's hand. He and his co-workers took the casket out. He started getting everyone into their cars when suddenly he realized the 2 sisters are still sitting there. He walked over and asked them if everything is alright. Sister 1 calmly told him that Sister 2 had died during the funeral service, but they didn't want to make a fuss at their friend's funeral. Some people might call that respectful. Actually, no, that's just creepy. What do you guys think? Next up, number 6 now, we have the Gravedigger. This one comes from Barking Panther. He said his dad was a gravedigger in the 60s. Now, one summer's day, his dad and his friend were digging graves in a field next to the cemetery. He was digging 5 feet away from a half-finished grave when his shovel hit something. It didn't feel or sound like a stick or a root. It was something different. He pulled it up with his shovel, and to his horror, it was a leg bone, a femur by the look of it. They began to dig more, and soon they found more bones. Then he found a skull and then another skull. That's when they quit. After contacting the police, they found out they had happened upon a mass grave from the Spanish flu epidemic in the early 20th century. That wasn't good enough though, and they vowed to never dig graves ever again. Next up at number 5 now, we have the exploding casket. This one comes from Oprah Lover. She said that she used to be the head of maintenance and labor at a very large cemetery. Quite often they would have to exhume old graves and resettle them due to the fact that most graves weren't buried properly before about 1920. The scary thing was though, these old coffins had a chance to practically explode. In the decades since the burial, methane gas from the decomposing bodies would fill the tightly sealed caskets. During the exhumation, it would only take a small knot from a shovel to loosen the lid, and then boom, the entire casket explodes. I'll leave the gruesome results of that to your imagination. Moving on to number 4 now, we have cremation. This one comes from Mad Muncher. They said they worked in the cemetery for around 7 years. One day they were working in the crematorium and had just loaded a coffin onto the charger. That's the device that slides the coffin into the cremator. He walked around to the computer to check the temperature and press the start button. When he got back to the charger, the coffin was now hanging off and about to fall. This was strange because he definitely put it on straight. The green light flashed and the coffin began moving forward, but suddenly it got snagged before hanging over again. Flames began running up the side of the coffin and he had to practically wrestle it into the cremator. To this day, he believes that the person really didn't want to be cremated. Next up at number 3 now, we have the kidnapping. This one comes from Adele the teacher, the same person who we talked about earlier. She said one night she was sitting in her truck while her co-worker was in the office finishing some paperwork. As she sat there, an old man came to the door and asked about finding a grave. She opened her mouth to respond when all of a sudden an old woman jumped in through the side door, pointed a finger at the man and screamed, "That man kidnapped me. Get me away from him. Don't let him ever touch me." She looked sane but in total panic. The man looked shocked and began walking away, seemingly lost for words. She asked the man what was going on. He could barely talk but muttered something about her having Alzheimer's and how hard it is to care for her. Then he got into his van and just left. She walked back to the truck. The old woman was now gone too. Her co-worker said that she had flagged down a random vehicle and just got inside. Then the man slowly drove past again. He smiled and nodded as if none of it had happened at all. What? No thanks. Moving on to number 2 now, we have the flowers. This one comes from Seagull Alumni, great username by the way. He said that in one of their mausoleums they had some crypts with enough space for caskets to go in one after the other. He gave the example of one casket going in first, then the hole is sealed, and then years later they may put another family member in after opening it again. This was pretty normal and nothing out of the ordinary usually happened. People would often put flowers in the crypt before it was sealed. One night they opened a crypt from 25 years before and to their shock they found real fresh flowers lying inside. There was no way someone would have got in there to do that, especially without being discovered. Everybody was too freaked out to even talk about it. And finally, number 1 now, we have the smiley face. This one comes from a Warlock. They said they were weed whacking at the cemetery they worked at one day. A woman with 2 kids walked up to him and said she'd found a weird box in a Walmart bag buried by the baby section. He walked over there and found this wooden box. It had been carved with a heart and a smiley face. There were cross bones drawn behind the heart. He opened the box to find various items like broken glass, some blue cloth and a button, just a strange mix of objects. He took it to his boss, who in turn took the box to their local priest. They concluded that it was witchcraft and urged him to not pry into the matter any further. Well, how do you feel after that? A little bit creeped out? I'm pretty sure I've made it even worse for people who, feel a little bit scared about cemeteries. Would you like a happy video next? Would you like an educational one or an entertainment one? It's up to you. Let me know. Thanks for watching as always, guys. My name is Danny Burke and I will see you all in the next video.